A doctor once told him he might never play football again. Tonight, in his own country, in front of his own people, Raúl Jiménez scored to send Mexico through at the World Cup. We open his file. Minutia, one player, one story, the fall before the triumph. November 2020, Wolverhampton Wanderers against Arsenal. An accidental clash of heads with David Luiz leaves Raúl Jiménez with a fractured skull, carried off on a stretcher, rushed into emergency surgery. This is not a metaphor for adversity. This is a man whose skull was broken on a football pitch, whose career, whose life, was suddenly an open question. 9 months of rehabilitation followed before he played a competitive match again. And when he finally returned, it came with a condition written into his file forever: a protective headband, engineered to reinforce the part of his skull that had been shattered, worn in every match since, a permanent reminder of how close the story came to ending there. For years after that, the question followed him everywhere. Could a player who survived that kind of injury ever again be the striker he was before it? Club football gave partial answers. The one stage that never had was the World Cup. Jimenez had played for Mexico for over a decade and had never scored at a World Cup. Not once. Group stages came and went. The file stayed open, unfinished, a career missing its most obvious chapter. Group stage, this tournament, Mexico versus South Africa. Jimenez scores, his first World Cup goal, 4 years after the injury that nearly ended everything, and he could not hold back the tears on the pitch. For most stories, that would already be the ending. A comeback goal on home soil, a career-defining moment sealed. But minutia does not close a file after the first goal. It waits to see what a player does with the door once it's open. Round of 32. Estadio Azteca, Mexico City. The pressure is different here. Not just personal redemption anymore, but a nation's redemption. Mexico, the co-host, carrying the weight of a country that has watched this team stall in the knockout rounds tournament after tournament. Ecuador arrive as a real threat, not a formality. And Mexico do not waver. 22nd minute. Julián Quiñones finishes to put the hosts ahead at Azteca, and the stadium that has waited years for a night like this erupts. 11 minutes later, in the 31st minute, Jimenez doubles it. 2 goals for Mexico inside the opening half hour, both taken with the composure of a team that came to finish the job, not survive it. Here's what should worry whoever Mexico draws next. This was not a nervous, backs-to-the-wall performance from a host nation feeling the pressure of a home World Cup. This was a team that scored twice in the first 30 minutes, and then had the discipline to see out a clean sheet against a dangerous Ecuador side. Composure like that at Azteca, in front of a crowd that has been waiting decades for a deep run, is not an accident. 2-0, full time. Mexico advanced to face the winner of England and Congo DR in Mexico City. And Jimenez leaves the pitch with a second World Cup goal to go with his first. Both scored in the same tournament. 4 goals total from a career that once had a giant question mark stapled to it after that night in 2020. This is the part of the file that matters most. A skull fracture does not usually end in a comeback goal at a home World Cup. Most files like this one close quietly in a rehab room, far from any cameras. Jimenez's stayed open because he refused to let the last line written in it be the one from a stretcher in November 2020. But one knockout win, even a home win, even a redemption goal, does not finish the file. Mexico still carries the history of a nation that has fallen short of the deepest rounds again and again. The next opponent will be bigger. The pressure at Azteca will only grow. Jimenez has answered the question of whether he could still do it. The question of how far this version of Mexico can go is the one still sitting open on the table. That's the file. A fracture, a headband, a return, and now a scoreline that reads 2-0 in the round of 32. Not the end of the story, just the proof that the story was never actually over. We close the file on Raúl Jiménez and Mexico's night at Azteca. For now. The comeback is real. The redemption is still being written. If this hit, like it, share it with one football friend, and subscribe. A new file opens tomorrow. The files never close.